Hello, and welcome to my bronze swing earrings project video. I'm Wanaree Tanner. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to create these reversible bronze swing earrings out of bronze metal clay. For this project, I recommend using art clay bronze. It features a low shrinkage rate and has excellent working qualities that are perfect for this application. These are the signature tools we'll need for this project. We'll be using the die-cut roller handle, Metamorphosis Bold die-cut roller, the 2.5mm Granulation Strip die-cut roller, the die-cut tool handle, Granular Daisy die-cut tool head, and the 2.5mm calibrated cutter. We'll also need a pair of sterling silver earring hooks, and the new all-purpose formula Eco-Release pen to lubricate our tools and work surfaces. Along with some basic metal clay tools, we'll also be using cut pieces of heat-resistant transparency film, which we'll be using for our work surface during the die-cut rolling process. Duralar medium-weight heat-resistant film works really well for this. So let's get started on making our bronze swing earrings. First, we'll need to prep the die-cut roller for use. Load the bronze die-cut roller into the die-cut roller handle with the alignment edge facing out. The alignment edge will help you keep the roller flush to a straight edge so you can texture cut smooth and consistent patterns. Push the rubber O-ring right up against the alignment edge. Lubricate the die-cut roller with the new all-purpose formula Eco-Release pen. Just click the pen twice to release the lubricant onto the brush tip. Use the brush to spread over the entire die-cut roll assembly. Work it into all the detailing, including the barrel cap, and anything that may come in contact with the clay. Brush vigorously around the roller a few times to evenly spread the release on the entire die-cut assembly. 2 clicks is plenty. You don't want to over-lubricate the roller, as too much lubricant can disrupt the texture. When you roll, you'll generally keep the handle at about a 45-degree angle, rolling at a consistent speed with an even pressure throughout the entire roll. Then use the all-purpose formula Eco-Release pen to lubricate the inside of a plastic rolling barrier. This will help the clay slab to spread evenly when you roll it down. Prep the transparency film work surface as well. Just 2 clicks is plenty. Don't over-lubricate the work surface, as your clay can pull up into the roller. Just a light application spread evenly with your fingers. Then place a 3-card rolling frame on top of the transparency film, followed by a rolling folder and a ceramic tile. You'll also need an acrylic snake or cord roller. Take out your clay and roll into a cord with the acrylic roller to about 8 millimeters around. Place inside the rolling folder at one end of the transparency film. Flatten down with the roller, adjusting the cord as needed to keep the strip flattening out into a smooth slab with even edges. Remove the rolling folder and the rolling frame. Place an 8-card rolling frame on top of one edge of the transparency film. You'll use this to keep that roller rolling in a straight line. Press the rolling frame down to hold the transparency film in place. Standing up while doing this helps a lot. Leave a gap between the clay slab and the straight edge. Hold the hand firmly at about a 45-degree angle, focusing on keeping the alignment edge on the die-cut roller up against that straight edge. The key is to keep the roller moving at a continuous, smooth pace. Roll toward or away from you, whatever feels the most natural. Don't stop and start, and don't bear down on the clay with a ton of pressure. Just focus on being firm and moving smoothly. Pressing too hard and moving slowly will cause the design to distort. Use a long straight blade to gently encourage the excess clay from the transparency film. Don't slice into the clay. Work the blade underneath the slab. Work just the corner of the blade under the clay slab in tight circles right up to the edge of the die-cut texture, helping to separate it from the film. You may see the clay separating from the bezel slightly. Then begin rolling up the excess clay. If you find one side is not releasing, restart the roll at the other end. Rolling up the slab in this manner will help the excess clay disconnect from the texture strip while helping to protect the shape of the wet bezel edge. You can see it peels away easily as you roll it up. Scrape away any clay residue left on the film. Repeat this on the other side, first dislodging the clay from the film with the blade edge, then rolling up to remove it completely. Trim the ends. Repeat with the other side. You can trim away any residue from the edge of the bezel, but do so carefully, pulling the blade away from the bezel edge. Trim the ends and set it aside to dry completely. Creating a flat strip, it will release from the film once it's dry, and you can begin cleaning up the debris clinging to the edge of the design. You can trim it away or use a sharp straight blade to scrape off the clay remnants. Brace the strip with your other hand as you work. Now we are ready to cut the earring elements away from the design strip. Use a sharp straight blade to cut apart the elements you'll need to build these earrings. You'll need 4 connected pairs and 4 individual elements to make each of the reversible earrings. Die-cut rolling elemental design strips like this makes fast work of creating enough elements. Now we'll create our granulation strips. First, load the 2.5mm granulation strip roller onto the die-cut roller handle with the alignment edge facing out. Make sure to lubricate the entire assembly in any area that might come into contact with the clay. Prepare a transparency film work surface with a little lubricant. Then position a 6-card rolling frame on top of the transparency film. Roll down a cord to about 8mm around. Place the cord inside the rolling frame, followed by a rolling folder, and roll down to a long strip. Peel away the rolling folder, remove the rolling frame, then place an 8-card rolling frame or a ruler onto one edge of the transparency film to hold it in place. Brace the frame firmly as you texture roll the granulation strip, holding it at about a 45-degree angle and rolling it smoothly. Use a straight blade to encourage the excess clay from the transparency film work surface, working the blade in circles right up to the cut edge. Roll that excess clay up. Rolling up the clay in this manner will prevent the granulation strip from pulling away from the film. Remove the clay from the other side. With a thin strip like this, it can often be easily pulled away. Trim the ends and set it aside to dry completely. Once dried, the granulation strip will release from the transparency film. Depending on the clay type, it might still be flexible. But for this project, we want the granulation strip to be completely dry and firm. Brace the granulation strip with a straight edge, then use a sharp straight blade to scrape some of the excess clay from around the granule strip. Carefully brace the strip as you scrape. Then cut away sections of a 4-granule long strip. You'll need 8 strips total. Trim close to the granule ends so they'll sit flush with the other elements. Here you can see how the elements will fit together. Now we'll need a die-cut link loop so we'll have a place to hang the earring hook. To die cut, use the Eco-Release pen on a granular daisy die-cut tool head and spread the lubricant out with the applicator brush. Roll down a strip of clay to 4 cards thick. Transfer the clay slab onto a ceramic tile for cutting. When die cutting the clay slab, always cut in a single row so the clay easily peels away from around each design. Now use the 2.5mm calibrated cutter to cut out the center granule. Set the link loops to dry completely. After drying, scrape the edges of the link loops. Once the edges are clean, poke out the center granule. But save that granule as we'll use it later on for a little extra detailing. Now we'll need a laminating layer to attach all of our elements to. Roll out a slab of clay 3 cards thick and transfer it onto a ceramic tile. You can trim away a little bit of that excess slab and use it to make a paste of water and clay. Just add small drops of water so the paste is really thick and sticky. Use a straight blade to press a centering line into the clay slab. Don't cut all the way through, you just want a light impression. Dip the back of one of the single elements into water and position it into place, lining up the element to the centering line. And press down slightly. Now we'll transfer a small glob of that really sticky, thick paste and put it just above the first element, because we'll be laminating and layering a second row right on top of the first. And this will help fill up some of that space. Wet the area to be joined with water. Then dip the back of the paired elements into the water and position it into place. Make sure everything lines up with the centering line. Add the granulation strips in the same way, angling them to meet at the center line. Then do the same with the link loop. Position, then carefully press into place. Working quickly so the clay is still soft, cut around the assembled design with a Pergonama needle tool. Hold the needle perpendicular to your work surface to avoid beveling the edges around your elements. Use the needle to follow the dried edges of the elements and remove the excess clay. Repeat with the interior space as well, including the link loop hole. While the clay is still wet, begin wet washing the seams, working the brush up in one single direction to heal and fuse the seam together. Wet the brush tip with water and continue washing away that seam. Make sure your paste is still tacky and work a little bit more water in as necessary. Then press that thick clay between the overlap space of the laminated elements. The thicker the paste, the better. Thin paste will only shrink away as it dries, leaving more gaps to fill later on. Smooth the paste into place and touch it up with a wet brush to make sure all the seams are melted. Then set it aside to dry completely. Once dried, the laminated layers will release from the tile. Go ahead and pop out the center of the link loop. Now we're ready to laminate the back layers together. Again, mix a really thick paste with water. Apply some paste, then position the link loop in place, making sure all the granule edges line up to the other side. You can set it down on the tile and press to secure the join. Then attach the granulation strips. Dip the back of the element into the paste mixture, then position into place. Repeat on the other granulation strip, making sure all the edges line up as you press into place. You can use a little nail art brush. You can use the nail art brush to brush some of the thick paste into the laminated layers. But work the brush in just one direction to close the seam, carefully bracing the piece as you work because the dry clay can soften as you add moisture. Laminate the remaining elements, joining them with the thick, sticky paste. Make sure that the element edges all line up. And then fill the seam gaps with more paste as needed. Smooth into all the gaps between all the elements. To quickly fuse all those laminated dry layers together, cut down a nail art brush so the bristles are shorter with a chiseled edge. The bristles are now stiffer, and the refinement process will go much more quickly. Dip the trimmed brush into water and wet wash with the shortened bristles to fuse all the laminated layers together. Again, keep working the bristles against the laminated layers, moving in one direction. They'll remove the excess clay and deposit into the visible gaps and dents between the layers. You can see how they're beginning to smooth together. Use a cut-down foam tool fed onto a pergonomic needle tool and dip it into water. You clean up all the edges around the entire panel by alternating between the damp side and the dry sides of the foam tool. Wipe off excess water from the foam tool onto your hand as you work. Think more damp than wet. It's the pull between the damp layers of clay and the drying foam tool that actually drags excess clay into any remaining cracks or dents. Work all the way around the earring panel, cleaning up the surface of each element as you go. Now for our last little detail, we're going to add the 3mm granule that we poked out from the link loop earlier. Dip into paste and press into position. Clean your brush and carefully brush just plain water around the granule to melt the granule seams right into the element. Add another element to the other side and then repeat on the second earring side so that it matches the first. After refinement, set it to dry completely one last time before firing. To fire using art clay bronze, you can either use the single-stage firing method as laid out in the directions, or I actually prefer the two-stage firing method because it's a bit more predictable. Please check out my firing base metal clay video for all the details on how to successfully fire base metal clay, especially for larger or more complex work. Once fired and cooled completely, you can finish by polishing with a Dremel 120 grit bristle disc brush. Then after polishing, we're going to open the earring wires and feed the link loop through. You may need to spread that opening a little more to accommodate that thick link loop. And there you have it, your earrings are ready to be worn. Thanks for watching.